It's been a long time since we've seen an update to one of my favorite Hokas, and this is the all-new Hoka Mach 6. They changed the foam, they changed the upper, and they changed the outsole. So did they ruin a good thing? It's time to lace up the Mach 6 and take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today, I'm gonna talk to you guys all about the new Hoka Mach 6. But before I do wanna go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Hoka sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, no one's paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So, with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Hoka Mach 6, and let's start with the specs. The big story for this year is that they've changed the midsole to an all supercritical EVA midsole layer. Last year in the Hoka Mach 5, I believe we had a supercritical top layer of foam, but then the bottom layer was the rubberized EVA layer, which also served as the outsole as well. There was no rubber on the outsole. This year they are giving us rubber on the outsole. It's a thinner layer of rubber, and it reminds me a lot of the rubber pattern that we saw on the Hoka Cielo X1s. Now, in terms of the stack heights for this shoe, it becomes a very tall shoe this year, 37 millimeters of stack height in the heel with a 5 millimeter drop, giving us 32 millimeters of that supercritical EVA midsole foam in the forefoot. Now, in terms of the upper, Hoka is giving us Creole Jacquard mesh. Material is nice and soft, and it is pretty breathable as well. As far as the tongue goes, there is a very thin tongue, which I appreciate, and then a little bit of padding in the back of the heel moving into this Achilles flare. And altogether, the Hoka Mach 6 comes in at a respectable weight for a daily trainer. Hoka provided weights for a US men's size 10, which is a little bit unusual because reference size is size 9, and that's what's usually reported by a lot of brands as the industry standard. So I measured my size 9, and that came in at 7.7 ounces or 218 grams. Now that we've talked about the paper specs, let's talk about what it was like to actually run in the shoe. And the good news is they didn't ruin the Mach. It's still a very fun shoe to run in, and it's a very fun shoe to run fast in. Picking up the pace, the shoe really comes alive, and I'm appreciating very much the full layer of supercritical EVA. And the rubber doesn't completely ruin the experience, which was my biggest concern looking at the shoe when I took it out of the box. A lot of times when you add a bunch of rubber to the bottom of a shoe, it does a great thing for traction and durability of the shoe, but the expense of it is usually extra weight and a kind of deadened experience. It kind of numbs what your foot is able to feel as far as what the foams are doing for you underfoot. I'm happy to say that I am getting a decent amount of traction from the rubber that's on this shoe, and I still feel all the fun that supercritical EVAs can provide when it comes to daily training paces, and even when you pick up the pace moving into workout paces, whether it's a fartlek or a full-on workout. But I will say that there is a downside to going full supercritical EVA on this one. I feel like with the two foam system they used last year with the Pro Fly and the Mach 5, I feel like they had what felt like a supercritical top layer, which was super spongy and soft, and then a much more firm rubberized EVA bottom layer. And I think what that did was give us an extra mushy, extra spongy top layer that both compressed really well and decompressed really well at the same time. And they didn't have to worry as much about the stability of the shoe because they had that bottom rubberized EVA layer to kind of help support and kind of catch everything. When they went to the full supercritical EVA, I think that they had to change the formula of the supercritical foam that they were using. And the overall sensation that I'm getting, even though this is full supercritical foam, is that it's a little bit more firm of a ride than what I got in the Mach 5. It's still a fantastic foam. It's still a fast foam. It squishes a nice amount when your foot hits the ground, and it perks back up as you're pushing off for that next stride. It just doesn't quite have the same kind of appeal and magic that the Mach 5 had. And I think hopefully the trade-off is going to be that this foam lasts a lot longer, and with the rubber that's on the outsole, the traction is going to be better. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about and spend a little bit more time than I normally do when I review a shoe is the fit of this shoe. I went true to size on this one, and I think that worked for me, and I feel like that's what I'm going to recommend for all of you guys to do as well. But Hoka for me is the least consistent in terms of sizing of their shoes, and it's not consistent from year over year, and this is a perfect example of it. When I look at the Hoka Mach 6, I feel like it fits really well, it's snug and comfortable, but it's not as roomy as the Mach 5 was, and here's a couple of ways that I can kind of demonstrate that in addition to just telling you how it feels on my feet. Look at the distance between the two sides of the shoe where the lace loops are. If we're looking at how far these are spread apart and compare it to, say, the Hoka Clifton 9, the distance between these two are about the same. Now there's one extra lace loop that's in the Mach 6, but even with that, when we get to the top up here, there's just not a lot of laces left. And there is a lace lock loop that's also at the top. And I don't think that if anyone's actually using this, that there would be enough lace for them here. So I feel like they've made kind of the upper as small as it could be while fitting, and they also chose a very short lace. So kind of like two small errors that has made it kind of like an unusual and notable situation. So if you're a lace lock person, you're gonna have to buy some extra laces, which is kind of a weird thing to have to suggest to people to do in 2024. Now, if we look at the Mach 5, we had the opposite problem where there's too much lace and just too much material in a baggy almost upper. Look how close I had to cinch the two sides of the shoe together in order to make it fit. It's almost like the two sides were touching each other because there was just too much material, too much volume in the shape of the shape of the shoe that's in here. And there was just ended up being a lot of extra lace, even though there were a lot of lace loops here. People that are using the lace lock would have been very happy with the amount of laces that are here, and even for them, it probably would have been a little bit long. So we've got three shoes here that are kind of like in the Goldilocks range, where the Mach 5 had just too much shoe to it. The Mach 6 has a little bit too little, and then we've got the Clifton 9, which I feel like is just right in terms of like the shape of the shoe, the fit of the shoe, and the amount of laces that they're providing. So just keep that in mind, something to be aware of. If you're the type of person who sometimes gets a 9 and sometimes gets a 9.5 in a Hoka shoe, this is a shoe that you definitely want to try on and check to make sure you don't need to go up. I stayed with the size 9, and I think it's good for me. I think it's going to be good for a lot of you, but if you're on that bubble, that's something that you want to check out in person first before you place your order. So now let's get into some pairing options. You've decided on the Mach 6 and you want to build a rotation around it. Here are some shoes that I think can go well with this shoe as you're training for your next road race. And with this, I think we could stay completely within the Hoka family and have a really good rotation. If you're using the Mach 6 as your daily trainer, your kind of do-it-all shoe, I feel like there are two levels of shoe that I think would also be fun, and they're both in the speed category. The first one's gonna be the Cielo Road, which is a low to the ground, fast, snappy shoe. This is something that I think is gonna work really well for your track workouts, your shorter, speedier stuff. When you really gotta turn it over and you really want the lightest, smallest shoe that you can have on foot so you can turn over those legs really quickly, I think the Cielo Road's gonna be a lot of fun. And then for your longer road races or your bigger workouts, I'm gonna direct you to the Cielo X1. I feel like this is the best racing shoe that Hoka's ever made. I've been really enjoying putting in a lot of miles in this unapologetically Hoka shoe. I think these three shoes together are going to make for a really fun season of training. Now let's talk about the buying guide and some alternatives that you can also consider. The Hoka Mach 6 sells now for $140, and in 2024, that is the standard price for flagship daily trainers. Let's see where the Mach 6 stacks up against the rest of the market. I think the shoe that it's closest to right now is going to be the New Balance Rebel version 4. I feel like both of these shoes went similar transformations from last year to this year, a little bit less chaotic, but still nevertheless very capable and very fun. And these two are probably both going to be in my top 5 daily trainers of 2024. The Rebel version 4 retails for $140, so it's the same price. And then the other shoe also retails for $140. That's going to be the Asics Nova Blast 4. Again, another shoe that underwent a similar transformation from last year to this year, where it got a little bit more stable, a little bit firmed up, but still nevertheless very fun, very exciting. These three together are my favorite daily trainers to run in right now at the moment. But I think there's two other shoes from within Hoka that you also have to consider if you're taking a look at the Mach 6. When I put on the Mach 6 at first, I felt like it felt very similar to the Clifton 9, and I feel like the changes that they've made to the Clifton 9 over the years, but especially as they jumped to version 9, have put the 9 and the Mach 6 closer than they've ever been. Now, the Clifton 9 uses a compression molded EVA, but I feel like they're really pushing what compression molded EVA can really do in the Clifton 9. I find that the shoe is lightweight, exciting to run in, and has a really nice bounce, so you could take it for everything from your easy run all the way up to light workouts. And that's a very similar way that I've been describing the Mach 6. I think the biggest difference between these two is that the Mach 6 has a little bit more of an aggressive rocker. It's a little bit narrower in terms of right under the arch of the shoe, so it's gonna be a little bit less stable for those of you who are concerned about stability. And it's a lot lighter of a shoe as well. If you like the one, you're probably also going to like the other. The Clifton 9 is a little bit more firm of an experience as well. So you're getting a very similar experience as the Mach 6, but a couple of slight changes that might push you from one way to the other. Personally, I like the Mach 6, but I've also really enjoyed the Clifton 9. And I think the last shoe that you have to consider is going to be the Mach 5. Now, this is a shoe that a lot of people absolutely loved. I love the Mach 4 and the Mach 5. And I feel like I prefer the magic that was in the Mach 5, even though it is technically a couple tenths of an ounce heavier than the Mach 6. It just felt like a brighter, spongier, more lively shoe to me. And even though it didn't have rubber on the outsole, I didn't have any problems with that in terms of traction. And I just really enjoyed the liveliness of the experience that I got. The shoe felt really agile and nimble, something I could take for a very long run or for a very short, fast run at the same time. And I just really like that feeling. And I know for a lot of you, you didn't like how short it seemed to last. And so the Mach 6 is going to be the shoe that you pick. But for me, I still am preferring the feelings that I got from the Mach 5. And right now it's available on sale for $112. So this could be a situation where you pick up another pair of Mach 5, even if it does last a little bit shorter than you'd like. And then when you're done with that, you can then move over to the Mach 6 and pick up the more durable version of the Mach. So those are my thoughts on the Hoka Mach 6. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?